Welcome to the Fantasy Forecast with Greinberg and Biggs. He is Greinberg. I am Biggs. We're here to talk about some stuff, and you're here to listen. So thank you for coming along to listen. Go ahead and hit the like button on this video. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell so that anytime we pop on here, you'll know about it. And also get your Fantasy Sports Advice Network.com membership taken care of. What are we talking about today, Greinberg?
Well, you know what? It's the off season now, and we just had a big game happen. Off season in the fantasy world, but we had a big college game happen this week, and we got to talk a little bit about the national championship game, Biggs. And there is some fantasy players that are going to be prospects that are going to be headed into the 2025 draft here that had some notable performances. So
it's true.
Yeah, man. How did you feel about that game?
As a semi-follower of Notre Dame football and a mostly hater of Ohio State University football, it wasn't a fun night. As an owner of a couple of the players in Campus to Canton leagues and prospectively trying to figure out where to take guys in Dynasty Fantasy and perhaps in redraft next August, it was a pretty good game. A lot of clarification that was out there.
Yeah, I mean, back and forth for the most part. You know, Ohio State did end up taking in the game, but, they did finally secure their first national championship in a decade. Quarterback Will Howard. I know that's it's a long time for them, right? I mean, 10 years, right? They scout.
My school last national championship, I want to say, was in like 1928 when we were the best football team on the planet. Roll on you Bears, California Golden Bears, for the win. There were newspaper articles written in the mid-20s about how the California Golden Bears were the best football team on the planet. You can look it up. It's been a long 100 years since then.
Yes, it has been
10 years.
That's just what happens when, it just seems like these college teams are all stacked at the top end here, and it seems to be a revolving door of the same top 10 teams, kind of always in the dance. But it's nice to see some players that we're going to finally kind of get back into the perspective here of fantasy football. And, four kind of names that we really want to kind of take a look at here after this game. I'm going to start with the Notre Dame quarterback, Riley Leonard. He's a well-rounded dual threat quarterback, strong blend of athleticism, arm talent, 6'4", 216. So he's got the size, he's got the mobility to evade pressure and extend plays with his legs, making him a significant threat, in the red zone for design quarterback runs. His biggest weaknesses lie in his mechanics and decision-making under pressure. His lower body mechanics can be inconsistent, which impacts his accuracy, especially on the short to intermediate throws. He also tends to make poor decisions when facing pressure, Biggs. So with Riley Leonard's dual threat abilities and some mechanical inconsistencies, how do you feel about his potential to land a viable NFL role right off the hop? Or is he going to be kind of just a backup kind of guy, or could he actually carve out a starting spot?
I don't think it's out of the question to say Will Levis without the draft capital. I can see Riley Leonard going in somewhere in the third or fourth round, similar to where Aiden O'Connell went. Who knows? It's hard to project somebody like that simply because he might find himself in an injury situation with whatever team he falls to. He is of slighter build. He's not quite as small as like Quinn Ewers or Dylan Gabriel. But of some of the bigger guys, the 6'4" and up guys who are coming out, he's a little bit skinnier. He has done some things in his career, and it shouldn't be. We shouldn't sell him short. The fact that he actually guided a team to runner-up in the national championship game, similar to what Michael Penix did last year. I see him as a third or fourth round guy. I see him as a career backup. But funny things happen in NFL paths, and that especially in fantasy, that dual threat nature, the fact that he can run with the ball. He should be on your radar. Whether or not you actually pulled trigger, that's another story. We'll have to wait and see on landing spot and potentiality of job and things like that. But yeah, I mean, he does have something. Currently, Draft Buzz has him as their 10th ranked quarterback of the class. That's never a great sign. And it just remains to be seen what the NFL can do.
Yeah, I mean, 10th quarterback in a class that doesn't, sound like it has a lot of top heavy talent here. So I'm looking at this maybe just to be a guy that, got into a big play game here, and you never know, maybe an NFL team sees that as a potential game managing guy that can maybe fill in as a backup, but I don't see him as a starter, but we'll have to see where he goes, right? Let's move on to the Ohio State side, because that's where the big name guys are, especially on the offensive side of the ball. TreVeyon Henderson is one of the most dynamic running backs in this class. Well-rounded skill set, making big plays downfield, in the backfield. This last season, he rushed for 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns on just 142 carries, averaging 7.1 yards per carry. His explosive speed allows him to take carries to the house like he did in that dump off pass in the semifinal game there. So, there are some concerns that could affect his long-term fantasy potential. Durability is the primary question mark. He's battled injuries throughout his college career. His pass blocking skills also need some refinement if he's going to become a true workhorse back at the next level. Sometimes his balance can falter when running between the tackles. So Henderson's elite athleticism and big play potential should make him an immediate asset in a committee backfield. But if he could stay healthy while showcasing his skills as both a runner and receiver, he's a great fantasy prospect. Biggs, with Henderson's injury concerns and maybe his pass blocking development, do you think he has the potential to handle that full workload right off the hop and be a featured back in the NFL?
I do. And last year, as you know, I was very, very surprised that TreVeyon Henderson
Yeah.
elected to go back to school. It didn't. I mean, we kind of figured we knew why and exactly why he and Emeka Egbuka went back to Ohio State was so that they could win the national championship. We also saw Quinshon Judkins transfer from Ole Miss to Ohio State, which made the TreVeyon Henderson return to Ohio State a little bit more puzzling, simply because they're two different backs that play in two different roles in kind of a matchup backfield. But it all became evident when they hoisted the trophy. That's why the kids do it. They got paid millions of dollars to go back to school and win that national championship. Now, that said, before TreVeyon Henderson in 2024 decided to return to school, he was my running back 2 in the class. I had him behind Braylon Allen. Now, this is the pre-draft process. This is like before combine numbers. This is before draft landing spots and everything. But I thought that TreVeyon Henderson was the second best running back in the class in 2024. Now, coming into this year, we've seen a lot of people rise, and what happens a lot in college football is you have guys who, as a sophomore or as a junior, they have spectacular seasons, and then the following season, somebody else has a spectacular season, and quickly the narrative shifts to other people being better. So looking over at Draft Buzz right now, TreVeyon Henderson is listed as their running back 6 in this class. I don't think that any of those running backs who also were in college football last year that I had him ranked above have passed him, save for maybe Ashton Jeanty, and that's because the narrative is going to give Jeanty the draft capital. But as far as TreVeyon Henderson's ability, he's absolutely explosive. There were some runs that we saw in the playoff where he got out in space and just absolutely blew doors off defenders and went for long runs. He reminds me a lot of Travis Etienne. He is able to work in small spaces. He's not very big. He's about the same size as Jahmyr Gibbs, maybe a little heavier. But I really like him, and he's definitely going to be a target of mine, regardless of his landing spot, because I feel like he's the type of back that is going to win a job, whether or not he is given one right off the bat.
I really like that call there, Biggs, and I have to attest to what you said there. You were very high on him headed into last year. We were both really surprised that he didn't, declare for the NFL last year. You know, he probably would have landed it a bit sooner in the draft last year. Like you said, I mean, he probably in most consensus would have been the number one guy headed in here.
I was heartbroken.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been great. He probably would have had a really good landing spot too. When you think of like how many backfields were opened this year. So yeah, interesting to see here. Before we get into our next two guys, we're going to have to hear from our sponsor, Where to Go, our community that is starting to build and thrive. Where are we going, Schultze? Where are we?
We are here. We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com, offering the best fantasy sports social media platform. Why join endless Discord communities or the trolls of Reddit? Fantasy Sports Advice is a community designed to help you win with 24/7 support. Go to FantasySportsAdvice.com and become a pro member for unlimited access. Again, go to FantasySportsAdvice.com today.
I'm a pro member. Are you a pro member, Mike?
I'm a pro member, and yeah, it's a great place to be.
Schultze, are you a pro member?
Yeah, buddy.
Cool.
All right. Well, thanks, Schultze, for stopping by. Now, let's move on to the next two guys that, we're in this game, and they're projected, both of them, to be potentially in the first round pick, maybe early day 2. But the first one I'm talking about is a wide receiver here, Emeka Egbuka. He's a polished, versatile wide receiver. Impressive skill set that makes dangerous threat all over the field. He set multiple records at Ohio State, breaking their all-time reception mark in 15 receptions, 204 yards in the playoffs in 2024. He's got the route running skills. His standout, is there. To me, he's, right above Luther Burden to me in this class. I have him just slightly ranked ahead of Burden. Some people have those two kind of splitting hairs. To me, he makes up, for his deficiency. He's not elite, but he's got some precise route running. Reminds me a little bit of that JSN role. 6 feet, 205 pounds. He brings that perfect blend of size and agility, making him a reliable weapon for teams looking for a route technician. He's got the ability to contribute on all levels of the field. He's got good, yards after the catch ability. So his ability to operate at the 3-level threat and his potential to be used outside the slot and inside. How do you think Biggs' skill set will translate in a fantasy role in the NFL?
One thing that kind of pops out to me is the fact that he is a product of this Ohio State system. Brian Hartline is the wide receivers coach, and they just continue to keep pumping out wide receivers from that school, beginning with Terry McLaurin. McLaurin was the first one to come out of Brian Hartline's pipeline. Emeka Egbuka, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Terry McLaurin, Chris Olave, Jamison Williams, who did transfer to Alabama from Ohio State, but he was still recruited by Hartline. And Marvin Harrison Jr., all of those guys are part of this lineage. While Egbuka is shorter than Harrison, he has a higher BMI and is faster and more explosive. He also has a really impressive ability to break tackles. He runs violently and with aggression and has elite yak ability. OSU gave him 11 run plays throughout 2022, which he turned into 87 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's also an asset in the run game as an effective blocker, which will endear him to NFL coaches. His hands are above average, and his route running is elite at every level in the route tree. He plays a very complementary role to Harrison. Fantrax has him projected to score 20.6 points per game in 2023. His NFL comp is faster Deebo Samuel. I wrote that before the 2023 season. I thought that he was coming out. I said it's unlikely that you would have a chance of rostering both Harrison and Egbuka without trading. If you have a pick later than the 105, you'll need to trade up or offer a trade after the draft to get Egbuka. While it won't cost you as much as it would cost to get Harrison, it will still require a Mahomes or a 2024 first, but not both. So I've been high on Egbuka for a long time. Again, just like with TreVeyon Henderson, it was a surprise to me that he didn't come out of last year's class. He would have slotted in possibly ahead of Rome Odunze, if not the right before. I think that would have been a player preference kind of thing. But yeah, he definitely should be the wide receiver 2 in this class, and he's got another year of seasoning. I'm doing whatever I can to roster him this year, even in redraft.
Yeah, good call. I like that. I like it too. He's got that route running capabilities, and he's going to be a target hog, I think, in the right offense, and a guy that can kind of step in right away as a rookie and deliver.
Imagine he goes to Jacksonville and they slot him on the opposite side of Brian Thomas Jr. Whoo! Let's go, Liam Cohen. Cook!
Let's go. All right, let's move on to the last player here, and he's consistently been a force in college football. He made a significant impact each season. He's rushed for over 1,000 yards, 14 touchdowns, 194 carries this year. Judkins, not the fastest back, but he's got the power and burst, and he's got some standout traits. Some people are kind of comparing him to like a de facto Jahmyr Gibbs. I kind of see that in his game, but not quite that prolific. His vision and patience as a runner allow him to find creases in the defense and generate extra yards even after contact. He's a good, well-rounded player. He can catch passes out of the backfield. He can improve, though, in his pass protection. That's still a work in progress. His top end speed isn't elite, which may limit his ability to take it to the house, on those big runs. However, his compact, powerful frame and ability to make defenders miss in the open field make him a solid 3-down back. Considering Judkins' versatility and his physical style, Biggs, do you think he has the potential to be a workhorse back in the NFL right away, or do you see him starting off more as a change of pace guy in a committee system?
I don't think he's a change of pace guy. I think he's more of a first and second down type back. He doesn't have great hands, and he doesn't block well in pass protection. So I'm not super high on him as like a full-time guy. When we look at comps, I'm getting comps of Zach Charbonnet, Kendre Miller, Brian Robinson Jr. Brian Robinson Jr. obviously being the best outcome as far as current role, not necessarily based on talent, but based on what job they have at the moment. So we have a tier system where we look at where guys are in their position tiers, and obviously Ashton Jeanty is tier number 1. I would say that Omarion Hampton and TreVeyon Henderson make up tier number 2. And then after that, you have a lot of guys: Caleb Johnson, Dylan Sampson, Jordan James, Quinshon Judkins, and Devin Neal. All of those make up the 3rd and 4th tiers. And there's a lot of movement based on the fact that one of them might be smaller, one of them might be slower, etc. I would put TreVeyon Henderson in that 3rd tier based simply on the fact that he is over 200 pounds. He is 6 feet tall. And he is coming out as a junior, which is absolutely something that's essential for fantasy running backs. So he's in that 3rd tier. You can kind of mix him around with 3 or 4 other guys. It reminds me a lot of last year's class, where I had a couple of guys that were at the very top. The NFL didn't see it the same way that I did. This year, there are a few guys that are kind of like at that top that could be drafted with the promise of starting on day 1, depending on who drafts them. The Cowboys definitely would take somebody and start them immediately, but I think the Cowboys have their sights set a little bit higher than Quinshon Judkins. So yeah, I like him, and he's definitely somebody to look for if you're playing Dynasty. He's somebody definitely to look for at the end of the 2nd or 3rd round in your rookie drafts. If you're simply a redraft player, he's probably not going to be draftable.
All right there. Okay, yeah, especially his first season. These running backs are probably wait and see kind of guys, especially when you wait to see where their landing spots are. Some of these guys will, be the next Bucky Irving, Tyrone Tracy based off of where they land. And some of them will be the next Trey Benson, who, potentially could have been, that guy and just wasn't in the right landing spot. So yeah, we might see some productive running backs year 1. we're bound to, but just a matter of finding the right one and getting the right situation there. Now, we will be back in a week or so with a new show, potentially recapping or previewing the Senior Bowl. I know we got some a lot of talent in that game, so we're going to want to see that and maybe do a preview and then a recap show afterwards. Biggs, what do you think about that?
I think I'm going to be doing live Senior Bowl content from Mobile, Alabama.
Let's go. And
we will be arriving next Sunday. I will be arriving on Sunday. That's 2 or 3 days from now. And it's going to be a fun week.
All right, man. Well, wish you all the best. Safe travels, my man. And everybody tuning in. Biggs is going to take us home so eloquently.
Let's go home. I'm already. I hope you win.
Hope you win. Peace.
Next year.
We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com, offering the best fantasy sports social media platform. Why join endless Discord communities or the trolls of Reddit? Fantasy Sports Advice is a community designed to help you win with 24/7 support. Go to FantasySportsAdvice.com and become a pro member for unlimited access. Again, go to FantasySportsAdvice.com today.